And some people would view that as bad. I actually view that as quite good. I think that the U.S. has abused. I mean, it's rather sad to me when I look at what the U.S. was in 1946. At the end of World War II, we stood on top of the world. We had moral authority. We had a great manufacturing base. We had great people, and all of that. And sadly, as with so many things, I mean, success became kind of a curse because we didn't realize how we got there, and we started to around the corners, bend the rules and do things that weren't so good. The CIA, and there's a lot of history behind all of that, which
Governments have been trying to solve the problem of monetary inflation for a very long time. Even the gold standard couldn't do it because the supply of gold grew at a slow rate of 1.7% per year, which caused inflation. However, the invention of Bitcoin has changed the way money works and solved this old problem. At first, people didn't trust Bitcoin, just like they didn't trust the internet at first, but as more people learned about and used it, it became popular. In the same way, Bitcoin is becoming more popular, despite initial doubts. It's similar to how cell phones used to be expensive and awkward, but are now everywhere. As Bitcoin grows, it attracts institutional investors in Wall Street, who see its potential, though some critics still exist. Visionaries like Abby Johnson of Fidelity have accepted it because they know it can make the world a better place and make money at the same time. In a recent chat with podcaster Sean Clarke, Lawrence Lepard, also known as Larry, talked about his thoughts on the impending financial disaster and the risky debt cycle the US dollar is facing. He said that Bitcoin is changing the world by bringing sound money and fixing the broken financial system. In the interview, Larry also talks about what the Federal Reserve might do next given the pressure on them and how Bitcoin can protect our financial future. If you want to know how money will work in the future and how Bitcoin may free us, stay tuned as we bring you clips from their recent interview. Please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on post notifications to see more videos.
you should be able to just live your life and go about your business. But sadly, the Federal Reserve is the most powerful entity in the world right now. And I think my grandkids are going to sit around and view the fact that we have 12 Fed governors setting the most important price in the world is the price of money. The reason that's the most important price is it determines capital allocation, and capital allocation is what determines economic efficiency. So if we all want to live better lives, which we do, we all want to live better lives. We want to get more for less. We want to have our living standards go up. I mean, I live better than my grandparents did, and I'd like my kids to live better than I did. If we want that to happen, we have to allocate the capital properly. To allocate the capital properly, you got to have the right interest rates. Well, Federal Reserve is at interest as high as 20% and as low as 0%. Guess what? That's out of control. They're not doing it properly. Okay. The right way to do it is let the market set it. It balances savings against investment. And so just like the Politburo setting the price of grain screwed up grain in the Soviet Union, during
Yeah.
during Stalin's regime, they did have too much or too little based on where the price was set. The same is going on with the money supply here. And so we've got to set the money based on market factors and market forces. And that's what Bitcoin is going to allow us to do. And as I say, my grandkids are going to sit around and say, I can't believe you guys had 12 people sitting in a room setting the price of money. What the fuck were you thinking? I mean, Sailor in a video I just watched recently, I thought it was a great analogy. It's like, people are going to look back at it. It's like, I mean, as you know, when George Washington was dying, they were draining his blood. They thought bloodletting was a
Yeah.
reasonable medical course to help him with his sickness. Of course, it probably contributed to his death. And I mean, I think people will view the Federal Reserve and the system we had in the same way in 20 or 30 years. But we got to get from here to there. I mean, it's we're not there yet. And to be fair, I mean, I've always been a little too optimistic about how fast this is going to happen. It could take 20 or 30 years. I hope it doesn't. But I think we're well on our way, though. I mean, Sailor and Madeira said, that this is the golden age of Bitcoin. I think he's right. I think in the next 10 years, we're going to see a really big change, a really big shift. And that doesn't mean the dollar's going to fail. That doesn't mean fiat's going to go away. That doesn't mean central banks are going to be put out of business. I think they'll all still be here. But the balance of power is going to shift very substantially in the favor of sound money, in my opinion, in the next 5 or 10 years. The world is full of intelligent people in China, Russia, everywhere. And when the U.S. grabbed Russian assets after the war started, that was a really boneheaded move. I mean, that was really incredibly stupid. It basically told everybody, hey, you don't necessarily want to hold your assets in U.S. dollars or in the U.S. system, even because the government doesn't like you, they can grab them. There's a trend away from the dollar as the reserve currency. There's just no doubt about that. If you look at the percentage of transactions of oil or anything else, you can see it's going away. But is the trend like gonna are we gonna stop using the dollar tomorrow? No. I mean, this is probably a 10, 15, 20-year trend, but we're clearly on it. Because you can see, the Gulf states. I mean, oil is the most important commodity in the world, and the GCC countries are starting to accept other currencies to pay for oil. I mean, they've definitely been accepting the rupee, they've been accepting the ruble, and so they've been accepting the yuan. And my guess is they're going to probably start accepting the Japanese yen relatively soon. I think there've been, I've seen evidence that the talks along that lines are taking place. And then also related to that, what you're also seeing is that the U.S. Treasury bond and U.S. securities used to be kind of the stable reserve asset, so that if any country ran a surplus in their trade, they could just say, okay, fine, we'll just dump it into Treasury bonds. We know their money good, and there's a decent yield, and so on and so forth. So,
It took a long time for the financial system to fall apart. The Federal Reserve and the removal of the gold standard in 1971 were the foundations of the problem. Since then, debt has been rising faster than economic growth, making the situation even worse. This has created a vicious cycle in which longer-term debt has to be sold to fund larger deficits, which raises interest rates even more. The government is stuck in this cycle, which could lead to inflation. In 2018, they made this decision during the COVID pandemic. More people are becoming aware of the truth about the situation every time another problem may rock the financial system within the next 5 years. Let's watch some more clips from Larry's interview.
but I think you're seeing that trend has definitely gone away because foreign holdings of Treasury bonds are now declining and have been since 2014, and you're seeing more and more foreign buying of gold. And I think, and maybe even some foreign buying of Bitcoin, but I think Bitcoin's probably not quite ready for it. And so my view is that these foreign countries are looking for a neutral reserve asset, other than the U.S. Treasury bond, which is not neutral, but it was a reserve asset. And gold is starting to fill the bill. Now, I think they're being short-sighted, and I think one way the United States and other Western countries could leapfrog China, which is buying a ton of gold, would be to just go to a Bitcoin standard and skip gold. I mean, Safe
Yeah.
points out in his book, by the way that the British did a much better job by going to the gold standard, and when the Chinese and the Indians went on the silver standard, they were disadvantaged because silver had an inferior stock to flow ratio compared to gold. Um, so we're seeing a move away from the dollar, and we're seeing a move away from the U.S. as kind of a unipolar, hegemonic entity in the world. And some people would view that as bad. I actually view that as quite good. I think that the U.S. has abused. I mean, it's rather sad to me when I look at what the U.S. was in 1946. At the end of World War II, we stood on top of the world. We had moral authority. We had a great manufacturing base. We had great people, and all of that. And sadly, as with so many things, I mean, success became kind of a curse because we didn't realize how we got there, and we started to around the corners, bend the rules and do things that weren't so good. The CIA, and there's a lot of history behind all of that, which we don't need to go into. But in my view, politicians in this country kind of pissed away, just an outstanding and leading position. Having said that, we're still an outstanding and leading country, and as a result of what we did, we were able to win the Cold War, which was a meaningful and important thing at the time. I mean, being able to get Russia to fall apart and stand down was a beautiful thing. But it's if a country misbehaves, eventually it catches up with it. And I think some of the things the U.S. has done have sadly caught up with us. And I think some of the things we've done have not really been in the spirit of the Constitution and our founding fathers. I mean, the founding fathers were not in favor of all kinds of foreign entanglements and wars and so on and so forth. And to me, the wars in the Middle East, which were probably largely fought over oil and some other things, those were just in enormous ways. Vietnam was in enormous ways. I mean, there was just a lot of, there've been a lot of stupid things, in my opinion, that the U.S. has done. But that is what it is, and I wasn't making the decisions, but I can observe them. And and then going off the gold standard in '71, I think that was just a colossal error, just an unbelievably colossal, short-sighted political error, because that's what set us on this road to where we are right now, which is that we might actually have a monetary system that blows up, you know, and
Yeah.
and, and if and when that does, there are going to be people that are going to get hurt. I mean, it's not let's not kid ourselves. I mean, it's unlikely that it's going to be a painless process. I mean, most fourth turnings involve some real tragedy and some real winners and losers. Having said that, on the other side, if we reset, or if we're smart enough to avoid the full fourth turning, a full expression of a currency blow up, i.e., we reset to a sounder currency on some kind of controlled basis. I think we could have, I mean, once we're back on sound money, this is a great world, in my opinion. Great people, great technologies, no need to kill each other, no need to fight wars. I mean, it's our kids and grandkids could have, I mean, the things that with AI, all the stuff that's coming, man, that's going to be fabulous. Okay.
Yeah.
But I don't really see how we get there with the broken monetary system that we currently have. Because you got, it's Jeff's point in Jeff Booth's, friend Jeff Booth's book. You've got an inflationary credit driven, we've got to grow Keynesian model pushing up against deflationary technology that says, no, it's all about efficiency and doing more with less. And, the fact that these two are clashing creates a big problem. And that's why we're seeing it expressed in the way that it's expressed, with all the income inequality and so forth.
Net transfers to US spot Bitcoin ETFs, on the other hand, rose to $43.19 million. This shows how strong Bitcoin is and why many people see it as a good long-term investment, especially during tough economic times. When you look at the bigger picture, it's easier to see why Bitcoin is so popular. Governments are printing money to pay off debt. Cycles that could lead to inflation, Bitcoin offers a decentralized alternative with a fixed supply. This makes Bitcoin a hedge against inflation and currency devaluation, attracting investors looking for stability in an unstable financial landscape. As we've already talked about, the cyclical nature of debt and money printing makes concerns over currency stability even worse. In this environment, Bitcoin's limited supply and decentralized nature offer a safe haven from the flaws of traditional financial systems. Recent inflows into exchange-traded funds ETFs show that more people are becoming aware of Bitcoin's ability to protect value and offer financial security in times of ongoing economic problems. What do you know about the debt loop? Do you agree that Bitcoin is the answer? Let me know what you think about Bitcoin in the comments below. Also, please share this movie and give it a thumbs up. Have a great day and don't forget to join.